Good morning and welcome to Ad Age Remotely. I'm Adrienne Pasquarelli, Senior Reporter here at Ad Age. Today I'm joined live by BrieaneOlson, the president of PacSun, who was recently named one of Ad Age's leading women of 2022. Hi Brie, thanks so much for joining us.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Before we get started, I want to remind our viewers, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them on our social channels. We'll do our best to get to them at the end of the conversation. And let us know where you're watching from. Now, PacSun has been around for a long time. The brand was founded in 1980. Why do you think the company has been able to remain relevant for so many decades, especially given how fickle consumers can be when it comes to store favorites?
Yeah, great question. I have had the privilege to work at PacSun for the last 15 years. And I think what PacSun has done really well over the lifespan is the reinvention of the brand. And I think the close connection to the consumer and the community and the careful listening to the community has helped PacSun in its reinvention and really keeping a few core values consistent over time. One of which is creativity, the second, innovation, and the third, authenticity. And authenticity is a word that's often overused, but I think in this context, PacSun has also a very unique DNA of curating not only the PacSun brand, but also a really unique plethora of brands that have played into the reinvention and partnership and what has made the brand resonate and continue to resonate today.
And the brand has become something of a pioneer, at least in terms of retailers, when it comes to digital trends. You were one of the first stores to show up on Roblox last year. Can you tell us a little bit about that collaboration and how it has evolved?
Yes, PacSun has been catering to a fully digital generation, and we know that the consumer lives in this space. Part of our entrance into Roblox was really led from our consumer focus groups. And we started our focus groups, our core demo is 16 to 24, but we started focus groups also from age 5 up because we need to understand the future generation of PacSun consumers. And so entering Roblox was really a community play, and it was an effort to engage with the community in a meaningful way. So we started our entrance into Roblox with a catalog of clothing, digital clothing, where the consumer could find the same clothing that exists in our physical stores in the digital space. And we saw really great adoption from that. But what was more interesting was understanding the consumer's sense of imagination and how their sense of identity is evolving in the digital space. And one of our best-selling items was actually something that does not exist in our physical space, and they were large gold wings. And that continued to be a bestseller for us. So as we started to chart our path for how we could better partner on the Roblox platform, we went into kind of a phase of imagination, innovation, and a conversation with the consumer. So we did more focus groups, and we ended up building a space really for our community called Pack World. That launched a few months ago and has been highly successful. It really gives the opportunity to the consumer to come on and build their own mall. So they are the mall tycoon. They are in charge of kind of deciding which stores and brands they want to carry. And so it's been really engaging and another opportunity for us to connect with our consumer in a more experiential way in the digital world.
And I have to ask if those gold wings ever did make it into the physical realm.
No, they did not.
Oh, my daughters would be crushed. Now, you guys have also dropped multiple series of NFTs. I think they're called Pack Mall Rats. What's feedback been like for that?
I think it's been a really interesting time to explore the metaverse, and NFTs play a critical role in that. And we are definitely in a phase of exploration. So we will have a series of 300 PacSun mall rats, which celebrate one of one our physical stores. Our consumer still loves physical stores and they celebrate their local malls. And so we have seen high engagement and a lot of success in our Mall Rat series. There have been evolutions in terms of the NFT space over the last several months since our launch, and we continue to iterate and work with our teams creatively. And we've also had an opportunity to partner with some really terrific brands. So Reebok was a partner, and so their Reebok Club C came to life as a part of our Mall Rats. We've also had Royals 2, which is a really amazing Black-owned brand, who is an amazing partner to us, a smaller brand in terms of scale, who partnered in terms of the NFT series for our mall rats as well.
And I also wanted to ask you about cryptocurrency, which PacSun began accepting as a form of payment. Can you tell us a little more about this strategy?
Yes, this strategy is certainly consumer-led. So in listening to the consumer and really focusing on what Gen Z sees as the future, we saw that the adoption of cryptocurrency in Gen Z is quite high. And more importantly, they're very optimistic about the crypto space. So this is a space also that is in a state of constant evolution. But for PacSun, we knew that in order to continue to resonate with the consumer, it was important to keep that as a part of our offering. And so we partnered with BitPay to help accept cryptocurrency, and we were one of the first retailers to adopt that.
And how are you seeing that fit into things? Like, is there a large adoption rate, or still kind of growing as something?
I would say it's still a state of growth. We've certainly seen strong adoption, but it's still the minority of purchases for sure.
And are there any other digital innovations that PacSun is investing in that I've forgotten to mention?
Yes, today we are announcing that we have purchased land in the Sandbox. So it's our first virtual real estate acquisition. We're very excited about this, as it will offer us further ways to, really immerse ourselves and create connectivity and connection points with our consumer. And so that is one additional step forward. We've also been really proud of our efforts to continue to resonate in this space. And one of the reasons that we entered the metaverse was because we know how important gaming is to our consumer. And so PacSun also launched PS the Game, which is really exciting video game that is standalone. So that has been another opportunity for us to continue to engage with the consumer. And so it's these efforts that, I think are really continuing to help keep PacSun ahead with the consumer and create moments with the community. And then next week, we are really, really thrilled to be partnering for the first time with Complex Land, which will create an experiential way for consumers, again, to connect, engage, and shop exclusive drops with PacSun.
Now, it feels like there's a risk with a lot of these digital trends of just appearing to jump on the bandwagon. How are you using these new offerings to actually develop long-lasting consumer loyalty? And do you have any examples to show that they really are sticking?
Yes, I think, the metaverse has been something that PacSun has been talking about strategically for the last 3 years. And so the effort to integrate ourselves into the metaverse is not a trend. It is a long-standing commitment from the organization and the brand, because we know that the evolution of the digital space and technology is so critical to our consumer. And I think there's two ways to really think about it from a brand position. You can sit back and wait, which is something that is a choice, or you can go ahead and be on the forefront and be a pioneer of this and explore and learn and, learn alongside the consumer. And that is certainly the path that PacSun as a brand has chosen to take. We're really proud of our efforts in this space, and we can see from the connection with the consumer, from the feedback circle with the consumer, that these are moments that we are creating that are making new connection points with our consumer that would not exist otherwise.
What about older customers, slightly older? I know your core shopper is younger, but how are you educating some of the older generations who might not know so much about Bitcoin or NFTs? Do you have anything that's geared to older millennials?
We really speak to 16 to 24. But I would argue that I actually admire a lot of brands in the space, such as Gucci, Burberry, Balenciaga. They've made such phenomenal strides in terms of entering this space and leading in this space. And so I feel like we lean on some of those luxury brands to help in the fashion space continue to tell these stories and do a part of the education. We also have brands like Fear of God's Essentials line that speak to a customer that has a much wider demographic in terms of age. And that also is an opportunity for us to help in the larger picture of fashion brands entering this space and continuing the conversation with the consumer.
That's an apparel line you mentioned?
Yes.
We've heard a lot about how Gen Z is fond of self-expression. I'm wondering how you're tapping into this aspect of your customer when it comes to marketing and merchandising.
I think self-expression is at the core of why I am so passionate about this industry. And I think that PacSun does a really great job in terms of allowing our brand voice to be an extension of the creators and the people we collaborate with and their voices. And so whether it is turning over our platforms to Storm Reid and allowing her to directly communicate with the consumer, or that of Jerry Lorenzo, I think the amplification and what PacSun can do is help amplify voices in the space and continue to allow that self-expression to evolve. And what we're really excited about is that self-expression, in particular when it comes to apparel, is at a really interesting and extraordinary juncture, because for the younger generation, for Gen Z, they value their own self-expression in the virtual space, in their avatar, as much as they do in the physical space. And so it actually represents for our industry as a whole a really unique opportunity to continue to explore that together and to help in the creativity and self-expression for the community.
Yeah, it's that merging of the two, the digital and how that will affect the physical. And also, I'll put in another plug for putting those gold wings in stores. Um, you mentioned turning over your platform to Storm Reid, the actress. Can you talk a little bit more about what you did there?
Yeah, we have an amazing relationship with Storm Reid, and we partner with her on a clothing line. It's centered on swimwear, but really this will be her third drop coming up this Sunday. And we love partnering with our creators because there's an amplification for our community, and also there's a way for her to amplify with her community in a different set. And so it's really about being able to create a more impactful voice. And she is all about self-empowerment. She is about, really optimism and giving people, a great sense of confidence in terms of how they self-express. And so I think she is an amazing role model for our consumers and someone that we have been very fortunate to partner with.
We do have a question from a viewer on YouTube, and it kind of plays into what we were just discussing. I think they might want a little more detail on how PacSun is balancing Web3 initiatives with real-world brand initiatives.
Yeah, absolutely. I think on YouTube, to be really candid, we have a lot of open opportunity, in particular as it relates to creating our own authentic voice as a brand on YouTube. What we have been doing successfully over the last several years is partnering with creators on YouTube, such as Emma Chamberlain, to help in their storytelling. And over the last 12 months, we partnered with Emma Chamberlain, and she did a segment on mental health and kind of the awareness around that, and tied that back to kind of her personal experiences, was something that we had leveraged on both channels. And so I think YouTube is a very important platform. PacSun has a very strong organic voice on TikTok, Snapchat, IG, those social platforms, and YouTube is opportunistic for us for sure.
And PacSun also has a gender neutral collection from last year. I was hoping you could tell a little bit about that and what feedback has been like.
Yeah, we've had a lot of success with our gender neutral line. We started really in a feedback circle of listening to the consumer and an observation of watching over the last 5 years how consumer shopping habits had really begun to evolve. And so, as we saw that in the physical and digital space, we started to create a platform from a digital perspective in terms of being able to shop in more gender neutral ways. That success led us to launching a brand called Color Range that we're incredibly proud of, because not only is it gender neutral, but it also is our first brand at PacSun that spans from our PacSun Kids range from 4 and up all the way through adults. And so it is more eco-friendly. It focuses on really, gender neutrality or gender fluidity. And we have seen really amazing reception to that so far.
You mentioned, kids 4 and up, and earlier you said that you do focus groups with children as young as 5. Are there any differences that you've noticed between some of these younger, I guess, Gen Alpha, I think would be the age 4 and 5, and Gen Z? Like any big differences that we should look out for, or marketers can look out for?
I think, when you speak to the young emerging generation of Gen Alpha, I actually feel very hopeful. And I feel hopeful because I do believe that this future generation has a much more inclusive mindset from the get-go. And, even as it relates to their thoughts on gender fluidity, diversity, it's starting from a different point. And so I think that that is very encouraging. I also think that the way that they're using technology and the way they engage, for example, on Roblox, it is absolutely a moment for them to socialize. It is how they make relationships. Their relationships in the physical space and in the virtual space carry equal weight. And so I think it's going to be a very interesting evolution in terms of how we market to this generation that values community arguably more than brand. And so I think that, as we continue to evolve and we continue to think about this new generation, we will have to approach, and brands will have to evolve in a very dynamic way.
And speaking of diversity, we have another question from our audience. We're in the midst of API Heritage Month, and Pride is next month. How is PacSun thinking about diversity and inclusion?
PacSun is really focused on diversity and inclusion every day. And so we take moments absolutely to celebrate, but we really are focused on the overall brand being very inclusive. And so over 50% of our representation from an everyday perspective is focused on diversity and inclusion. We are very thoughtful in terms of the brands that we curate. We have over 15% of Black-owned brands in our space, and that is something that has been ongoing, and we continue to grow. We have, a lot of initiatives that speak to this, and our brand partnerships also speak to the importance of diversity because it is a reflection of our community. So it is an absolute commitment that we take from an everyday standpoint, and we're very proud of the progress that we've made.
Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about your marketing strategy, particularly with regard to the channel mix. I know you mentioned a lot of social media, but I'm wondering which channels you found that are resonating the most with your customers, and if you think about any traditional marketing like out of home or TV as well.
Absolutely. I think TikTok has been really an amazing newer platform that our consumer is absolutely highly engaged on. So PacSun has grown to 1.7 million followers on TikTok over the last year and a half. So the growth there has been incredible. The engagement is incredible. And I think that the consumer really values TikTok as a different view into the brand, something much more organic, authentic, entertaining. It is a great connection point for the brand. So TikTok has been a strong force and a very important piece of our growth. Snapchat has also been incredibly critical to our brand and another opportunity for us to engage in a much more organic way. And so Snapchat also continues to be very important to the consumer. I would say IG also, in particular, when it comes to Reels, has proven to be highly successful. But, really when it comes to marketing, what is continually kind of at the pipeline for PacSun is our creators. And so our creator community is incredibly important. Partnering with different designers, voices, musicians has been another really important piece of our voice and amplification. So those are pieces that also help in our storytelling as a brand as we continue to evolve those partnerships over time.
Now, is your internal team creating videos and content for you, or are you also working with external agency partners?
All of our creative is done in-house. We do partner in particular cases. So for example, in the spring campaign, we did a virtual reality piece, which we did need to reach outside, and we worked with Misato partners, and they were able to bring to life. We focused on Emma Chamberlain and her evolution into her very first state as an avatar. And so in the short film that we produced, she goes from her physical self into her virtual self. And to be really candid, we did not have that in-house know-how at this time to be able to do that work. And so we're working on something similar as we go into the back half of the year that will also rely heavily on kind of that type of digital design work that we will also leverage out of house.
Speaking of the back half of the year, we are getting close to back to school season, even though school still hasn't ended for so many students across the country. But what are you planning for back to school? What can we look out for from you guys?
I think for back to school for PacSun, there will be a very strong intent and return to denim. We're really excited about denim as a category, and there will be a strong push from the organization. I also think that there will be an amazing piece on storytelling, individuality, and really looking at our consumers and our audience as a community and amplifying their ability to storytell alongside us. So we're really excited about that. And then when we look to Q4, really excited about the amplification of the digital space and how we continue to expand into the metaverse. And we have some very exciting initiatives there that will tie back to both physical store efforts and also the virtual space. So a lot to come and further advancements in our NFT series as well.
When it comes to back to school, have you encountered any supply chain issues, and is that affecting the cadence or the timing of some of the drops or the marketing?
At this time last year, I would say absolutely yes. I think last year was kind of the peak of where we saw the supply chain really creating a significant impact in our ability to deliver goods. We have readjusted our calendars, and I think, with that, we feel very confident that we will be able to deliver with our consumers in a timely cadence this year.
That's great. It does feel like last year was pretty rough for the season. So the last 12 months have given everybody a chance to kind of get their strategies in place and timelines.
A much more proactive approach.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about brick and mortar and e-commerce. How many physical stores do you have right now, and how do those stores fit into the retail strategy?
We're right at 300 stores, which is a significant reduction from where we were at our peak at almost 900. So certainly there has been a contraction over the last decade in terms of the importance of store real estate. But as I spoke to at the beginning of the conversation, the 16 to 24-year-old consumer still loves going to the mall. There is still a magic in the physical space that is very difficult to duplicate. And although we will continue to create moments of synergy between the physical and virtual spaces, our physical spaces will continue to remain a core competency for PacSun, something where we can celebrate and activate, and we will continue to host really impactful moments for our consumer in these spaces. So I would say that, it's very important for us to continue in both the physical and virtual worlds. And I think what's unique for PacSun is we have strength in both of those areas.
And a lot of your stores are, as you said, in malls, which certainly are not the shopping destinations that they once were. Are you finding that doing events and more activations are helpful strategies in attracting in-person customers to those mall locations?
I do think that it's an important part of the strategy. It's a continued part of our strategy. We've historically done a good job with hosting events in stores, but I think we're starting to partner with our creators in different ways. We're starting to bring to life physical activations that have a digital component. So for example, when we did the Emma Chamberlain event in our downtown LA store, it was also during the launch of our video game. And so there was a gaming truck out in front. And so people could experience the new game. There were ways to activate. We were also streaming from the outside of the store, our new short film, which focuses on the virtual reality elements. So I think the integration of those two spaces will be the special sauce when we go forward.
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea, to have all those things going on simultaneously. Not easy for you to keep track of, but fun for the customers.
Yeah, I have a really terrific team and so thankful to them. So that is what really allows PacSun's magic, is the people, and our people are so critical to our success.
Well, we're almost out of time, but I wanted to ask you one last general question as you have your finger on the pulse of the younger generation. What do you think today's consumers expect from brands?
I think that they expect authenticity from brands, and that authentic voice is something that requires development over time. And so I think the expectation of brands today is much higher than it was before, because the value of the brand versus the community is less. And it's really important as a brand to build yourself into a community, to lean into your audience. And those are the pieces that will create longevity for brands. And you have to ask yourself the question of, why does your brand exist? And if your brand didn't exist, what would happen for that consumer, right? Is there a contender that could quickly pick up that business? Or does your brand actually emotionally resonate with the consumer and therefore is not replaceable and will continue to exist? And so those are questions that we've continued to ask ourselves as our brand has evolved, and I think are incredibly important for maintaining relevance go forward.
Yeah, that emotional resonance to create loyalty feels really crucial.
Yes, so important.
Well, that's all the time we have today. Thank you, Brie, so much for joining us.
Thank you, Adrienne, for having me. I really appreciate it.
And as always, thank you to our Ad Age Livestream Dream Team, Arabella Breck, Anna Sekula, and Lauren Chiardio. Please continue to check adage.com for breaking news, and thanks for tuning in.